Well, good morning. Good to be here this morning. We were talking about Luke's birthday coming up on the 7th, and first of all, Friday we had to take him to an allergy specialist. Now, for me, in the spring, I get all tore up with allergies, and it is what it is. But then it's over. But for him, he seems to be having them all year long. So we took him. You know how that goes? They stuck him 52 times on the arms, and he lit up red on about all of it. But this one thing especially, it welded up and it had a weird shape to it. And he said, "Look, Daddy, that looks like West Virginia." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Does that mean I'm allergic to West Virginia?" Probably not. Well, yes, you are. You're kind of allergic to everything. But this message this morning is about patience. And Luke knows that on Friday, because his birthday is this week, on Friday he's having his first official birthday sleepover. 4 or 5 of his little friends are coming over. Yeah, and they're going to have a sleepover at our house. Actually, for a little bit, yeah, I am. Sorry, Gail. I've got a couple things I need to do. But he cannot wait. He has already yesterday started laying out things. We watched a little bit of the NFL Combine on TV, yesterday or the day before, even a little bit, just watching, just something. And so now he's got weights, he's got cones, he's got football helmets, he's got footballs, he's got gloves, he's got everything laid out because they're going to have a combine, I guess. The Friday night and the Saturday, they're going to have a little combine. He's going to have, he and his little buddies, he wants me to run a combine for him. I don't know, but anyway, he can't wait. He is driving us insane. Every little bit. How many days till Friday? Son, come on. I've got him a little calendar. We put the date. We've numbered them off so he can he can just count them down. But he can't wait for Friday night. He's just so excited. Well, this message this morning is about patience, because I've already had to operate some with him. Just buddy. It'll be here. Just be patient. Be patient. Well, it's easy to tell my kids to be patient, but sometimes it's hard for me to be patient. Sometimes it's hard to be patient. I was thinking about, you can look at about any Bible story, okay, in the Old Testament, and see how God dealt with his own people. His people who've done great things for God. And very rarely is it God told them, "I'm going to do this," and the next day the Lord, no. Usually it's, "We're going to do this. Now go build this ark for a long time." Right? Or, "Abraham, I'm going to make you the ruler. Your seed's going to be like the stars and the sand. You're not going to be able to count it." It didn't happen overnight. They didn't start a family plan right away. It took a long time, for this thing to get going, So God's timing is a lot different than ours. It just is. I've used this before to kind of put it in perspective. But the Bible tells us that a day to the Lord is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day. So that's obviously, quite different than our time frame. And I use this example as well. You guys know this, but the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt for 400 years, and God's comment about that was, for a little time, they were in slavery. Yeah. Okay? 400 years. For a little time. Okay, so his time frame's way, way, way different than ours. We know that. When God is doing something in our lives, or gives us an insight into something that he wants for us to do, or a way that he's maybe leading us, or a direction he's pointing us in, a lot of times we want to see instant results. Okay? We do. It's the society we live in. I experienced this a little bit when I was living in South Carolina, more so than here, but you can see that in coaching, right? Last year, there was a bunch of coaches who didn't perform well, and so now they're looking for a job. It doesn't take very long for people to, poor old Bob Huggins this year, going through a struggle. There's some people saying, "Oh, I need to get him out of there." They're not very smart, but that's what they're saying. Okay, we got, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. he's proven himself. He knows what he's doing. We just got to give him time. He'll figure it out again, right? But for some people, though, they want, if it's not happening right now, that's good. Move on. Next, that's just kind of the way it is. We don't have very much patience anymore. We use, and it's different now. It's way different now because I can think about, back when Coach K at Duke, Krzyzewski, I'm just going to call him Coach K. But when he got to Duke in the early 80s, they lost for a few years, for a long time. He wasn't very good. And they lost a lot. But they stuck with him. They stuck with him, and they believed his vision, and now you see what they have today. You see what I'm saying? If he was hired today and had the same records that he had back then, he wouldn't have made it. They would have fired him long before he ever got to where he is now. You can look back and see that. So, I'm just using sports as an analogy, but it's that way in everything. We're just not very patient. We're not a very patient people. We're just not in America. And I was thinking about this and how it relates with my own children, and sometimes for little things, if they want something that's kind of small, okay, yeah, you go ahead, you can have that right now. But if it's something big, and neither one of them have a job, okay, so if they want something big, and and they can't pay for it themselves, well, let's wait on this thing now. Let's earn some money. Let's save. If you want it that bad, birthday, Christmas, whatever, save up some money, and maybe you can work towards that. Trying to teach them something so they'll grow in it, right? Instead, if you just give a kid something every time they want something, that's going to be a problem down the road, right? You kind of got to make them understand what it means to earn something. Don't you think our Heavenly Father kind of views us the same way? Every time we bend our knee and pray, God, I really need this, and then the next day we're disappointed because we don't see it. Well, maybe God's trying to teach us and help us to grow in things, So we need to be patient, and that's what the Scripture is going to tell us this morning. James chapter 5. We're going to read a couple of verses this morning. James chapter 5, verses 7 and 8. Therefore, be patient, brethren, until the coming of the Lord. Well, that's a mouthful, obviously, right there. Okay? Therefore, be patient for the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, waiting patiently for it until it receives the early and latter rain. You also be patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. May God add the blessing to the reading of His Word. We were talking this morning at breakfast. The coming of the Lord, if the coming of the Lord is ever at hand, we're getting there, I believe. We're getting there. We're definitely way closer than it was when this was written. Okay? All right. But we have to be patient. Now, it mentions here a farmer. I'm not a farmer. Okay? I think my mom and dad ruined me of farming when I was this tall because I was the human rototiller. That was my job, was to hoe the garden, beans and the corn, hoe it, and whatever else we had planted. But I remember many times being, well, probably even up into my high school years especially, I remember this. Dad, can I go do whatever? Was the garden hoed? No, sir. When the garden's hoed, you can go. And I learned how to hoe pretty fast. I was good at it. I could go fast, and I knew if I cut something, chop down a plant, that wasn't going to be good. So I was fast and efficient. I could hoe fast. Okay? Go down one side, come down the other, and be done. So, okay, Dad. All right. Well, okay, it's hoed. Looks good. You're good. I was good at it. And then what happened was I went off to college, and they haven't had a garden since. That's pretty good. I don't know about that, but that's true. All right. But anyway, I've never really been. I've never really been much of a farmer. My grandfather was a farmer. Gail's dad, he was a dairy farmer. I don't know if he sold his cows. He got out of the dairy business. He's going to start driving a truck now for people, water truck or something. But he sold all his dairy cows. But he, being a dairy farmer, he would have to plant corn every spring, just acres and acres of corn, because in the wintertime, you don't just feed a dairy cow hay. You got to feed them other stuff too, silage, the corn and whatnot. And so he would plant field after field of it. And I remember Luke, when he was wee little, not that he's big now, but when he was wee little, on a Saturday, what's Papa doing? He's planting corn. Okay, next day we're driving down the road. Dad, where's the corn? You know? I mean, Papa planted it. Where is it? It's just a bunch of dirt. I don't see corn. Right? No concept of how this thing works. Unfortunately, we're like that a lot as Christians, though. God, I need you to help me with this. Plant that seed. Next day, well, where is it? It takes time. These things take time. So, we talk about planting seeds, and I know this working with youth. A lot of times we plant seeds in kids. We don't even know we're doing it. We may say something to a kid in passing. Like, I remember a kid came back to me after he had graduated high school. He's probably out of school 4 or 5 years. And he came back to me. He said, Coach, I want to tell you something. He said, one day I was a freshman in practice, and you pulled me off to the side and you told me that you believed in me. He said, that's the first time I'd ever heard that. And I didn't even, I was just thinking about trying to get our team better and saying, hey, kid, you can do this. I believe you can do this. I didn't think a thing about it other than just trying to, he was a tight end. I was trying to get our tight end position better. And I knew he could do it, and I was trying to help him see he could do it. That's all. I wasn't trying to make some big life-changing statement to him. I was just trying to fix the tight end position because I had about 5 more minutes left in the practice period to get the tight end fixed. And I said, you can do this, man. I know you can. I believe you can, right? And so, but he told me years later, he said, you know what? You telling me that's the first time anyone ever said anything like that to me. He said, that really changed how I looked at everything. And I didn't know I was planting a seed, but I planted one anyway, And when you work with kids, a lot of times you'll see that. You'll plant seeds and you won't see any results at all for a long, long, long time. You say things to kids and you try to plant stuff in their life, but they're so young and dumb it doesn't do any good for a while. It just doesn't. It just doesn't. Okay? And that, as an educator, as a coach, I understand that. I don't expect to see my seeds grow up and blossom into large plants the next day. I know it's not going to. But you just try to keep cultivating. You try to keep feeding into these kids. A farmer. Once my father-in-law planted all that corn, all right, he wasn't done. That's just the start. That's just thing one to do. Because next, in a few days, in a few weeks, once it starts getting up just a little bit, he'd have to fertilize it. And again, this wasn't just a couple rows of corn. Okay, I'm talking about acres and acres of corn. Okay, so he would have to get fertilizer brought in on 18-wheelers. You know what I mean? Like a lot of it. And I don't know how it worked, but he would get it and he'd put it on his tractor. He'd be out there just doing laps in fields for days, fertilizing and stuff. And then after he fertilized it, a few weeks later, this is Work County, West Virginia. There's no irrigation system. You have to pray for rain. You have to hope God brings some rain for it. And then after a while, once it started getting a little taller, then he had to come through and he would have to spray, and it would this stuff he would spray it, and it would kill all the weeds and keep the corn alive. I don't know how, but that's what he did. So that was another process in it. Then getting close to the fall, when it's time to harvest, when it became deer season, he would invite every hunter in the world that he could to come and shoot every deer off his farm that he could find, because the deer are terrible to his corn. He's got acres and acres of corn. Those deer would come in there and just wallow in it, and just, when they flatten it out and knock it down, he's trying to harvest it, it messes it up. So he was happy for anybody to shoot any deer off his farm at any time, legal or not. But there was a process he had to go through to get the corn. Then once it was there, then he had to go harvest it, and that took a while. They had these silage wagons, these big old wagons. He had this machine. He'd go to chop it down, it would chop it up, and it'd shoot it out the top into this wagon. Just trip after trip after trip up and down the road to get this stuff into this silo, to have for the winter. Okay? He didn't say on, in mid-November, he didn't say, you know what? I probably need to plant some corn. You had to think ahead. This started in the spring to get ready for the winter. He had to plan ahead for things. That's another issue I think we have sometimes as Christians. We don't necessarily plan ahead, we're just kind of oblivious going through life, and then boom, here comes a problem, and we haven't really prepared for it. And then here we are. It's like, whoa, we need the help from God, but we haven't put in the work to be ready for our own hearts to be good to go. Because you remember the parable of the sower, right? Jesus shared that with the people, and the sower would come to plant his seed, and some fell on rocks. The heart wasn't ready to receive it. I've been in church services before. God's honest truth is being honest. Especially in my younger days. When I sat there in the pew and I heard the preacher preaching and I knew he was right, but my heart wasn't. My heart was as hard as a rock. And I wasn't going to let that in there. That's right, but I justified, well, he's right, but nah, And that seed would hit, but it wouldn't get in there and then wither and die. Okay? That's just it. I had to, as I get older, you got to prepare my heart, get the ground all. See, that's when he's going to plant his seed. I didn't even tell you about that part. Before he ever plants it, he has to disc it. He has to get it. And he would take cow manure, right, and take it out there and spread it all over these fields. And long before he would ever plow it, just to get the nutrients in the ground that it would need to grow the corn. And you talk about a good time. You talk about living on a road where you're surrounded by cornfields. Oh, in the spring when the corn's growing, it's not an issue. When he's in the summertime, when he's putting this cow manure on all these acres and acres and acres of fields around your house, it stinks. It really stinks. But it was like a year-long process just to get this corn to grow. You'd have to do stuff all year long. All right? So, when we look at that, we need to understand that for God to work in our lives, for God to work in our hearts, it doesn't just happen. We have to be willing, okay? We have to get our ground fertile, okay? We have to saturate it with some of the Word, spend time in prayer, get it all loosened up so God can get a seed in there, okay? So again, through my experiences in my own life, I know God was trying to show me stuff for a long time, but I just wouldn't listen because I was young and dumb. And my heart was hard and I wouldn't let it get in there, okay? The ground wasn't right, wasn't ready. So I had to mature and realize that I don't have it all figured out. I don't know. In fact, I don't know much of anything. So I had to let God let my heart be prepared to receive the things that God was always trying to show me. Always. All right. Now, some people get it maybe a little earlier, and they get that ground ready, and God can show them things. And as they mature, God can show them more things. Some people, God's still trying to show them the same thing He wanted to show them when they were 12. Because the ground He's still trying to show them this, and He'd like to get them to here, but we're still here. That's the way it is. We have these things in school called IEPs, individual education plans, for certain students who need a little extra help or extra resources. But some of us need maybe we need some GEPs, some God education plans, a little extra help. I could use one sometimes for sure. But we have to be patient. We have to consider this farmer. Now again, I've shared with you about my father-in-law and the things that I've seen him do with his farm. And first of all, he has to prepare the ground. So we have to prepare the ground in our hearts. Then he had to plant the seeds. Okay. For us, God will plant the seeds in our hearts. He is wanting to plant. He's wanting to put stuff within us. Okay. But again, we have to make ourselves ready for that. But again, as I mentioned, once you plant that seed, once it gets covered, the earth covers it, then there's still stuff to do, right? You got to water it. Let's take it off from the big scale. Let's put it back to just a small. Let's say we're going to plant a garden this spring, okay? Let's say we're going to plant a garden. Right? Well, first we have to find a piece of ground, okay? Then we have to get it ready. We have to do all the stuff like I just talked about to get it right. Then we're going to plant some seeds in there, right? Then we're going to cover it up. We're probably going to put a little fertilizer in it, okay? Probably going to put some stuff in it. And then, what we have to do is once we get that in there, we got it planted. We got to watch for weeds, okay? Because weeds will come. Why is it that weeds grow so well? And we just our yard at our house. Of course, we built it. We had a new house, new construction, so it was basically dirt. And so we did all the things. We planted the grass seed, and we put the straw down, and all that stuff. And there's some good grass in spots, and then there's just weeds in places, and the weeds are this high, right? And the grass is this high. Weeds grow a lot faster for whatever reason. But when you plant something in the garden, as I know, the human rototiller can tell you, the weeds will be there. They'll grow and they'll try to choke out the good stuff. Okay, that's kind of their job, I guess. But they'll grow and try to choke out the good stuff. I've seen this happen so many times. Somebody gets a word from the Lord. It gets in their heart. They get it. They understand. Okay, so they start heading that direction. But then the weeds start coming up. And all of a sudden they're like, well, I think God said, I don't know if he really meant this. Maybe I don't. Maybe that's not quite right. And then they start veering off track. Remember, again, the parable of the sower? Jesus said that some seed fell on soil that wasn't deep, and it sprouted right up. And then the sun came out and scorched it dead. Remember that? Right? That's kind of what that's talking about. This is me too. I have experienced this in my own life. Especially early on with this, when I started trying to get my own ground ready to receive something from the Lord, I would get something and I would take off running with it. Yeah, woohoo! But then I'd fall down because I was just trying to go so fast with it. I wasn't being patient with it. I wasn't letting God do His work with it, and I was trying to take off and run by myself. And before you know it, I was falling flat on my face. You have to have that ground ready. But that seed's got to get down in there deep, and you've got to, once it gets down in there, you've got to be unmovable and unshakable. In fact, the word says, it says in verse 8, you also be patient. Establish your hearts. Establish your hearts. In other words, make up your mind, this is it, bottom line. I don't care what happens, this is it. It's the way it's going to be. When my father-in-law planted corn, if it was raining, we're going to have corn. If it was a drought, we was going to try to get water to it somehow, but we're going to have corn. We can't turn back, We can't afford to plant seed and then go buy corn. It has to grow somehow. You've got to make it grow. There's no wishy-washiness about it. It was established. We're going to have corn. Got to. For the farm to operate, you've got to have corn. So for us, whenever we get this seed in our hearts from God, we have to be established on it. We have to have our minds made up and our hearts made up that this is the way it's going to be. All right? Again, here's another sports analogy for you. All right? But every week, and Dan can tell you this, every week as coaches, you prepare to play someone during football season for a Friday night. And no matter who the opponent is, you're coaching to win the game. No matter how good they are or whatever, or how good you are, you're coaching the kids up through the week to prepare them to win the game. And by Friday, you've got them believing, okay, at least in their head, you've got them believing, hey, we're going to win it. We're going to do this. We're going to win this game. We're going to do it. And then you get there, and the game starts, and let's say 2 or 3 things bad happens. Let's say you fumble, and they return it for a touchdown. You throw an interception, and all of a sudden you're down 2 or 3 scores. Now all of a sudden that belief, was it here or was it here? Because it's being challenged. If you believed you were going to win up here, and things bad start happening, well, I guess we're not going to win. Guess we were wrong. Guess I wasn't going to happen. I guess we're not going to win. And you can see it. You can see kids dropping their demeanor, their body language just starts, oh, man. You see that. But if they got it here, if they believe they're going to win here in their heart, no matter what happens, they're going to just keep fighting and keep digging and keep scratching and keep clawing until the bitter end because they believed in here they're going to win. You see the difference there? For us, with the seed that God puts in our hearts, we need to establish our hearts. If God gives us something, then we're going to say, that's it, period. It doesn't matter how many things go wrong along the way. This is it. This is what we're doing. This is what God said. This is where I'm going with it. No matter how many hang-ups, trip-ups, hold-ups, mistakes happen, I'm headed this way. See that? Again, there's so many times in my own life I know that I've kind of veered off because something bad would happen, and well, maybe that wasn't quite right. You know? And so, but if God gives us something, we need to establish our hearts on that and keep headed in the right direction. Okay? Because we've got to watch for the weeds. All right? Only when, because it says here, the farmer's waiting patiently for it until it receives the early and the latter rain. Now I'm telling you, if God gives you a direction or something, a word from Him that gets into you, the rains will come. The rains will come. The showers of blessings will fall. It may be late. Like it said here. The early rains and the late rains, it might be late. In other words, you might have to really stand in faith for a while and be like, water, we need water. It's dry, we need water. You know, but they will come. God doesn't send you off somewhere and say, good luck, see ya. That's not the way God works. He'll be with us. He'll lead us. He'll guide us through. But again, sometimes our time frame and His are on total different pages. And when we know we need water and we need rain, right? Blessings, if you will, to get this thing done, and we know we need it, we get a little impatient saying, come on, God, let's go. Let's move in this. But we need to stand in faith knowing that the rains will come when God knows it's time that we need it. It'll be there. Okay? It will be there. All right? I know many times that my father-in-law would pray and just wait in faith for rain to come for his corn. All right? Now, again, it costs a lot. I don't know how much money. Never asked him. Probably wasn't in my business. But it costs a lot of money to buy all the seed to plant field after field of corn. It costs a lot of money to get the fertilizer and the weed killer and all the stuff he had to have. That's a lot of money. So he doesn't have any money budgeted into his farm budget. He didn't have any money left, so if the corn didn't grow, to buy something else for the cows to eat in the winter. That was it. There was no turn. That was all. I mean, that was it, you know? So he had to, a lot of times in dry spells, he would have to wait and pray, Lord, we need some rain. I need some rain. Now, I've seen people with a garden. You've got 2 rows of corn. You need rain for your stuff to grow. Well, okay, but if it doesn't, you'll go down to Kroger and buy it. Oh, it's not, but he needed rain, I mean, that was his livelihood. He had to have it. So, I mean, farming on a large scale makes about as much sense as coaching, to be honest with you. Because farming, you're depending on the weather to determine your success. Well, who knows, right? Who knows what the weather's going to do? You can't control the weather, as they say. So again, as coaching, it makes about as much sense as putting your reputation on the line for a bunch of 18-year-old kids to see what they do. Because you don't know what they're going to do either. 16 to 18-year-olds, and the community's going to judge you by how smart you are by what they do on a Friday night. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. But all right, I guess God calls different people for different things, I guess. But he had to stand and he had to wait. So often he had to wait for that rain to come. And you know what? It did. It always came. Some years the corn may not have been as great as others, but he always made it. He always had enough. Just enough. Always did. Remember his silo, there'd be times, that silage in there, and he would always feed silage up until, I don't know, he had a certain day in March, it would be coming up, where he would turn the cows back into the field, and where there would be grass to eat. But you have to wait till the grass started growing. And there'd be times when, boy, that silo would be, you could almost see the bottom, before he was ready to turn the cows back. But he always had enough. He always had enough. So God always provided, okay? He'll do the same thing for us. He truly will. But again, we have to trust Him and trust His timing and be patient, okay? So in closing this morning, the Bible says, be patient. Consider the farmer and how he waits for his fruit. Consider that as we think about the things that we want in our lives, or the ways that God is working us. You see, and, I've alluded to this. I can't really, nothing is official or final for my own life, but my family is going through some type of a change that I'll share with you later, okay? It doesn't affect, in fact, it makes things better for here, all right? So it doesn't affect anything here, so don't be like, well, what's going on? It's nothing really about here, okay? But we're going through something that God is directing, okay? And I know He is, and we've just got to wait and be patient. I guess that's why this message is coming this morning. But we've got to wait and be patient for Him and His timing on things, okay? So, in that, we have to stand on faith when it looks good and when it doesn't look good. When things look like, yeah, this is what God wants us to do, and see, He's opening these doors and it's looking perfect. And then sometimes it's, well, this is what God wants us to do, but this doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now. In the Bible, how often did it ever make sense when God told someone to do something? Hey, now we're building an ark out in the middle of a desert where it hasn't rained on the earth before. Go. Doesn't make any sense. No sense whatsoever. Yeah, David, I know you're just this tall. I know you're just a boy, and that giant's huge, but you got this. Go ahead. Don't wear any armor. That's going to slow you down. Go get it. Go take it. Doesn't make any sense. You see, the things of God doesn't make any sense to the natural realm. Okay? Doesn't make a lick of sense. But to God, seeing the bigger picture, it makes all the sense in the world. He's got it all under control. He's got it all figured out. We just have to follow what He wants us to do and not what we think is best. Because for so long in my own personal life, and I alluded to this maybe last week or the week before, I know I did, for so long, I would decide myself, I'm going to go this way. God, you bless me as I go this way. All right? Now, I'm figuring out, God, you tell me where to go, and then bless me when I go that way. You see the difference there? For so long, I'm going here, God, you bless me, please, as I go this way. Okay? And it wasn't a wrong way or a bad way, it was just the way I wanted to go. But now, as I'm getting a little older, and hopefully a little wiser, I'm saying, God, where is it that you want me to go? You show me, and I will follow you. Okay? So, again, that seed God was trying to plant in me probably 20 years ago. But guess what? The ground wasn't ready to receive that. Okay? It wasn't ready to receive that seed God was trying to put in me a long time ago. And looking back on things, I can see how God was trying to show me that a long, long time ago. But I didn't listen. I just wasn't ready to hear that, I guess. I don't know. But now, thankfully, getting that ground ready so that a seed can be put in there, so that now I'm finally starting to get some of this stuff, but not just here, but here. Okay? I'm establishing my heart on it. So no matter if it works out at the beginning or not, I'm not going to change course. Because I'm going to follow where God is leading me. Does that make sense? I hope it does. I hope we can all get to that point. What if we as Murphytown Baptist Church said, well, this is how we've always done things, and maybe it's okay. Maybe it's not. God, where do you want us to go as a body of believers? Maybe it's the same direction. Maybe it's a little different. I don't know. I mean, I don't have that answer. If I did, I'd tell you. I don't know. But that's the thing. As a church body, what if we just decided, what if we got our collective hearts ready to receive the seed from God so that we could truly follow where He would want us to go? And then we would water that and be patient with that and cultivate it and take all the weeds out and just wait for Him. The Bible says, wait on the Lord and be of good courage, and He will strengthen your heart. Amen. God bless you.